Welcome back. Remember when we did this? So I thought to take a step further and try to clone this single page. As you can see, it comes with an age restriction form, so let's go and pass that. This is the original page of Cerveza Corona. So we will try to clone this with the carousel, with the menu, with this content as well as the footer. However, the original page has this little bug on mobile version first design. It doesn't allow me to do anything there. It's an obvious bug over there. By the way, you can find the code on my GitHub repository just right here. And let me tell you that you have two versions. First, of the CSS only. You can go ahead and have a look about it if you like it. And also the other branch that we're going to use, which is Bootstrap and SCSS. All right. And Corona, if you're watching this, please let me know if you like it.
By the way, if you find this video helpful, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more.
Without further ado, I am NeoDev. Let's grow together and let's get started. Alright guys, as I told you, we're going to use Bootstrap. So from Bootstrap we just need this CTN, and for SAS we need to install this extension. After you do that, hit the watch SAS button. It would automatically generate a normal CSS file for us. Now inside of our HTML, we just need to paste our boilerplate, website icon, the icons that are coming from bobsicons.com, the Bootstrap CDN, and afterwards our CSS file in order to override the Bootstrap styles. Okay. Having said that, we need to jump into our config setup. So for this, right away, to save us some time, let me just grab it and paste it. Why am I using 3 Google fonts? Well, the reason is that I want to be as accurate as possible, because the original page uses it. As you can see, it has different fonts families over there. After that, we are resetting everything from scratch. No list style, padding and margin none, box size import box, some variables and mixins. And now, in case you're wondering about these mixins, this mixin of position and absolute is only to make those variables or those parameters optionals. How? Well, with the if statement. This is how can we make these mixins, those parameters to be optional. Okay, having said that, let's go inside of our style CSS and start to import it. So partials and config setup. Now, of course, we're not able to see anything because we need to hit go live server, and after we do that, we just need to give it, for testing purposes, background color for the body of light blue, position relative, line height of 1.4. Now our image, let's make it responsive, so max width 100%, and let's right away import all of the parts that we are going to use throughout this video. Okay, I know that it's going to be boring watching me type HTML and CSS, so for this I'm going to do it in fast mode, so fast forward. You know, I won't speak and you will see the code start working around. All right, only when the case is important, I will start speaking or talking, explain things. For now, just start with the main, then a header with those classes from Bootstrap, then another nav inside of it, then a span with ID of logo, but with my image of the class of logo. Then after that, I will have my burger and my span times 4 because I want 4 of them. Now we can go ahead with inside of our header and start messing around with what? Well, the header. For testing purposes, let's give it a background color of tomato to see the dimension of our header. Okay. Then after that, we can target our logo. So right away, the logo, position absolute, C index 9 because I want it to be at the very top of everything. Then the dimension, width and height, and the logo, which is the image itself, to be positioned on absolute. Now let's recreate our burger icon. So for that we need to target our span because inside of it we have 4 of them. So right away let's just create them. Display block, the dimension, some margin, space between each line, and the background color. Now let's position it. So we need to call our mixing of position and absolute, C index again, not 9 because I want it to be at the very top of everything. Let's include the dimensions of that burger just in case, width and height, and of course cursor of pointer. Now for the number 3, number 4 child of the span of those lines, we're going to use CSS selector. Remember that the ampersand means the direct father, which in this case is the span. And there you go. Now let's go and work with our media queries. So our first breakpoint is going to be 576 pixels according to the Bootstrap breakpoints. Okay, so let's make it bigger. This is more than 576 pixels, that should do it. And now let's jump into our logo, change the position and the dimension. There you go. As well for the burger, but for the burger is going to change only the position. Ta-da! So it's responsive at this point. Alright guys, at this point I won't talk unless it's necessary. Alright? We are using padding star 0 and Mari bottom 0 because no release comes with that as a default. Okay. Now, according to Bootstrap, XL and LG are coming from the breakpoints that are now inside of style SCSS. I want to make it global for each button that has the class CTA and BTN. So for that, switch color, padding, and font styles. Okay, then inside of our carousel, now for the image I want to be beneath of everything, you know, and then the content above, of course. That's the reason that it has C index -1. Remember that SCSS allows us to do some nesting, so inside of this carousel box we have now here we're going to set a few Bootstrap classes. So container -sm for small screens as this breakpoint. Then for that I will remove the padding padding on the x-axis from that container, as well as this margin star to be 0 for the container. Then I would like to say text -center, and that should center our text. There you go. And afterwards, at some breakpoint, I mean text -sm, so at this breakpoint, which is 576 pixels, I would like to put my text on the left. So in this case, star, that's the Bootstrap class. So if I expand more than that, now my text is on the left. If I put it back again, it's at the center. Okay, let's carry on. Now remember, SCSS allow us to do some nesting, so inside of this text div we have an h1. Remember that the ampersand means the direct file, which in this case is text. Okay, that is my h1. Pretty similar as our final result, actually the original page. And it almost looks like as the original page. This section is responsive as well as this, you see? However, you will realize that we have this little bug. If we select this section, all of them get underlined. So in order to fix that, we need to say the following. Okay, I want to hover that, but not the li with the class of embed. By using this pseudo CSS selector, we are just denying this, so we can select them one by one now, as you can see. Because inside of this we have this div with this li with the class of embed, as you can see right here. Okay, let's carry on. I am doing this way because I want to be explicit or specifically, in order to target this li, which is inside of all of these divs and another list, in order to override the CSS from the Bootstrap. That's the reason I'm being too specific in that way. Okay, let's carry on now. Well, what do we need to do next? Well, we need to work with our links. Okay, let's expand. Okay, these links, this one. So in order to do that, let's go inside of our index.html, go back at the very top, and just next to the burger, we need to start with the following. Now let's work with our JavaScript. Do not forget to link your JavaScript file just above the body closing tag. Okay, inside of main.js, what are we going to do to start with? Well, we're going to toggle some classes, that's it. So first of all, the manipulation, we're going to toggle the burger, which is the icon, or each span, then the links, which is the whole wrapper, this whole pink wrapper, and then the logos, the two images that we have so far. Therefore, we're going to apply a listener for our burger, which is going to be click. After that, we're going to toggle some classes. For our links and for our burger, we're going to toggle the class list of active. Then this document.querySelector all returns an node list, so an array of 2 elements in this case, because we have 2 images. Here, we're going to toggle for each image. So the first image, I'm going to toggle the class of height, and the second one, the visible. Now, for the body, I don't want the user to be able to scroll, so I'm going to toggle the class of height scroll bar. Now let's go here and we say if the body has the class of height scroll bar, apply overflow hidden. So if I click overflow hidden and click back again. Okay, that's the first one. Now the second one, let's go inside of our header. We need to target first of all the logos. Let's go in order. So let's remove this. The background color was for testing purposes, as well as this one from the body. And now inside of our logo, we need to say the following. Well, we need to give it a transition effect for each image. Remember that each image has the class of logo, so opacity. Now for the last image, I would like to start with the opacity of 0. I mean the image with the color. There you go. Now let's work with the toggle classes. We're going to use CSS tool selector, so image logo first child has the class of height, move it to opacity 0, and the last child from 0 back to 1. Now if I click, this toggling, and they are changing, and that's great. Now let's move on with our span, with our burger icons. Do not forget to give it a transition effect, so right away, just for our span, each span has a transition, and then we need to say the following. If my burger has a class of active, I would like to target all of our span and change the background color to black. So if I click on that, there you go. Now for the other childs, the first one, the second, and the third one, because inside of our span we have, inside of our burger we have 4 span. There you go, you are able to see this change. Now in order to get rid of the last line, you see this last line, we need to say the following. We need to give it a left property of 50% and remove the width. So by removing this width and moving to the left, we have this nice effect. You see? It's like a disappearing from the middle. Okay, so our toggling classes are working. Now we need to work for our links itself. So if we go scroll down, which is our links, okay, this one right here. We need to target the nav list. We need to give it an initial properties for our nav links. So to start with, let's go with the scale, transform of scale that 8 is going to start with that. There you go. Now if my links has the class of active, I would like to target the nav list and change just the transform scale back to 1. If I click, you see? But of course it's going to start with an opacity of 0. So right away, opacity 0. Okay, let's do this. Okay, click and click. You see, our toggling classes are working. Now the last thing to do is to work with our link itself. I mean the whole wrapper, the whole pink wrapper. So let's remove this. Let's give it the original background color, which in this case is going to be white. And now remove from the position, initial position. So top -100 VH. And do not forget to give it a transition property to have a smooth effect on that. So there you go. Now if my links has a class of active, I would like to give it top back to 0, you know, to restart everything. That means, you know, toggling classes. So if we go again, ta-da, and it's already responsive, and that's great. However, we have a little bug. If we scroll down and we click on that, of course we have our menu here, but we are able to see this content below, and we don't want that at all. So in order to fix that, we're going to use the window global object by saying, okay, this is going to be for the bug, by saying window.scroll to that method, and we're going to inject the coordinates 0.0, which means this one right here, this point right here. Let me expand this point. So if we scroll down, if we click, there you go, it takes us really top of our page. Now we need to work with our carousel. If we go back to our HTML, just beneath this part, this div, basically we're going to copy the same div and paste it. That is going to be our second background image. Now inside of article, we're going to inject a new div inside this article, just next to the button. So this new div with no class is going to be a wrapper for our next content. A new image, new h1 and new button, so you can see. Next, we need to go ahead inside of our partial carousel and let's get this started with some JavaScript actions. First, for each div that has the class of carousel-image and transition opacity, we're going to change the opacity and 1 second, and that's the speed of the animation. Second, for our second image, we're going to apply the same properties as we did there. So going to paste, this is going to be for the second child, another image. As you can see, we can see the other background image. However, I would like to give it an initial value of opacity of 0. There you go, but do not worry, because that is going to change things to JavaScript with an active class called visible, with back to opacity of 1, of course. Next, just next to the carousel hyphen box, we need to say the following: the article that has a class of carousel hyphen content, I need to target the new div that we just created, and for testing purposes we're going to give it a background color. Like that, you can give it whatever that you want, it doesn't matter, just for testing purposes. Then let's give it a width 100%, position absolute, top, left and right, in order to see what's going to be like the end positioning. Okay, after that we need to go ahead and give them to each image, each h1 and each button, and initial values. I mean, if we go back inside of our carousel box, this is going to be a JavaScript initial values for each one, for each image, for each h1, and finally for each button. So all of them are going to start with the following. First, our image. So the image, they're going to have transform, opacity of 0, and an animation delay. Why? Because we're going to use an animation. We're going to toggle that animation on JavaScript, of course. Let's remove this opacity for now. Okay, that's for our image. There you go. Now for the h1, we're going to apply pretty much the same. An animation delay, opacity, and transform translate. But for now, let's just remove the opacity of 0. And finally, our button. Same idea. Transform, opacity, and animation delay, and remove for now the opacity of 0. Now we need to create that animation. So at keyframes, I'm going to call it fade in, and right away 100%, put it back, translate y to 0, and opacity of 1. Put it back as their initial values. Okay, after that I need to create a new class. I'm going to call it run-contents, because that's the class that we're going to toggle inside of JavaScript, and we need to call the animation name, duration, count, speed, and fill mode. Now we need to work with our JavaScript. We're going to apply DOM manipulation. So each background image, each h1 and each button. Then I will create a variable called carousel index, starts from 0, and now for testing purposes I will use the window global object and attach a listener, which in this case is going to be DOM content loaded. And for my callback function, I will create a function that is called run carousel. And of course we need to create that function. So run carousel, no params, and I would like to start by iterate by 1 my carousel index, of course. And if my carousel index is more than 1, I would like to restart my carousel index back to 0. Why? Because we have only 2 elements, 2 things that are going, to be moving around endlessly. So that's a carousel, an endless carousel. And so if it's more than 1, just restart that back to 0, because we have only 2 elements to apply. Okay, then I will create a function that is going to call toggle BG stands for toggle background image. Oh, yep. And let's create that function. So toggle BG, no params. So for each images, I would like to get access to each image with a square brace notation, and of course going to use my carousel index. And then I will say class list that add. Who am I going to add? Well, the class that we set, remember, visible. So that's the class that we're going to add. However, since this is going to be an endless carousel, I'm just adding it in but never removing it. So how can we do that? How can we reset that class of visible? Reset visible class. Well, by using a for each loop. So images that for each image, I will remove my class list. So remove of visible. Okay, that's the way that we can reset the class. Okay, having said that, let's carry on with our next elements. We need to toggle those images, h1 and buttons. So here, just beneath the toggle BG, I will create a function that is called run carousel but content, and the first content is going to be my sub imgs. Remember, query selector all returns an array, actually a null list but like an array, and I'm passing as a parameter sub the element itself, and which is an array, then the h1, and finally my buttons, so each button. And of course we need to create that function. So run carousel content, we are receiving an array, and here we're going to say const, oh my god, inside of our function we say const, my current element is going to be my array but using the carousel index. Remember, square brace notation in order to get access to an element of an array. Then we will run the animations. So pretty much the same idea as we did above. So current element that class list that add. Who am I going to add? Well, run hyphen content, because that's the class that we created in order to call our animation, this one right here. And of course we need to reset that, so just right here, instead of add, remove. We need to make sure that we are resetting that class, that animation, and then add it back again to our current element. As you can see, it's running. Okay, then next we need to create a new variable in order to make it a carousel, endless carousel. So let timer, this is pretty much the same as declaring this as an undefined. Okay, so let timer, and here I'm going to create my new function. I'm going to call it run page with no params. So in this case, my timer is going to be equals to set interval. So that's the way that we can make a carousel, an endless carousel. So for testing purposes, in each 3 seconds, I would like to run my carousel, this function. So just going to grab it and paste it. My god, there you go. So each 3 seconds should be running. However, I need to call this function, of course. So inside of my window applet listener, and there you go. See, I know that you saw we have that initial bug that the first element, the first image, the first h1, the first btn are not going down. Don't worry about it, we will deal with that later. But now the other bug that we have is that the background image toggle bg is the only one that is working. Therefore, that indicates that our problem is with our animations. So how can we fix that exactly? Well, do you remember what we did in this video? Well, we're going to apply the same logic, and we need the next element. So we will say const next element should be equals to the array, of course, but here we're going to apply the next index. How can we calculate that next index? Well, we'll say const next index should be equals, of course, to my carousel index plus 1. But remember, as I told you, we're going to follow the same ideas we did in this video. We're going to use the reminder operator, and we're going to apply array.length. So this length, this assures us to make the carousel endless. Now here it comes the golden trick. So now that we have access to our next element, so next element, in order, okay, let me comment this out. In order to remove this bug, I mean, the first one are not going down, it's okay. Now, okay, the second one is going down, but now the first one is going down, and then they stay there. And the only thing that is changing is our background image. So how can we fix that? Well, we need to say next element that class lead that remove, well, my animation, which was my run content class. And this is the way that we can assure that this carousel is going to run forever. Of course, we have the first bug, don't worry about it. Okay, this should restart, there you go, and go back again. And now, in order for you to be able to see what's going on, really, let's remove, uncomment this opacity of 0, opacity of 0, and opacity of 0. Let's go back again.
Hey, that's pretty good.
But so far so good, guys. Let's carry on with the carousel control, I mean with each dots that we have. So we need to go inside of a carousel right here, and we need to set first of all the initial background. Then we're going to apply the same logic with the animation. I'm going to create a class, an animation class, I'm going to call control-bg, and my keyframe is going to be just to change that background color. So from transparent to white. Next, inside of our main.js, we need to apply the manipulation. There you go, DOM manipulation. Then for each control, just above this function, above run page, we need to say control, because it's an array, so we can say for each. Here we're going to use the iterator, in this case each li, and the index itself. Then my callback function is going to be the following. So for each list item, I will add the listener, because each list item is a dot, is a bullet, and I will say click. Then my callback function here inside of this listener is going to be run carousel, but here I'm going to pass who? Well, the index. And now above in run carousel, we're going to use a default parameter. Why? Because we're already calling run carousel, we're right here, but we know params. So therefore, as a default parameter, e, that stands for index, is going to be 99, just for, to make sure. Then after this, we're going to apply an if statement. So if my index is different than 99, I will set the carousel index to wherever the current index value is. So equals, again, equals the index. That's the way that we can reset the carousel index. Then I'm going to change those functions. So first of all, let me just call it again run carousel, because the same is going to be applied for our control bullets. It's because our run carousel content is receiving an array, is expected to have an array. But here now we're going to change the following. We're going to accept another parameter, so comma, and in this case it's going to be the animation. So in this case it's going to be string. But now in this case, for control, instead of run content, is going to be my control-bg. So just going to paste it. And of course, above we need to change that. So we are receiving an array and any, that stands for animation. Now, instead of hard coding the animation, we just passing that parameter through. The remove, the add, and the remove again.
Wait a minute!
Nonetheless, we have a bug. If we click on one of them, we have that bug, you saw? So in order to fix that, we need to reset our timer. Just beneath this, we need to call reset. So every time I click on that bullet, I need to say reset timer. But of course, that function doesn't exist yet. So just beneath the run page, I will say function reset timer with no params. I will say clear interval. That's the way that we can clear our timer. However, I need to reset again that timer every time we click because we want to our carousel to keep running, of course. So we will say timer should be equal again back to set interval and run carousel every, in this case, every 5 seconds. So we won't have that bug that we saw earlier. So if we click, you go. If we click here, if we click here again, you see? Finally, inside of our carousel partial, we can remove that background color that was for testing purposes. So comment. That's great, guys. It seems like we are done. As you can see, the page is fully responsive. So you can test it out. At this point, it's fully responsive. Our menu as well. It's responsive. We're not able to scroll. If we scroll a little bit, we click, still working. However, I would like to do something with this H1 to give it some more space. So a quick fix inside of our media, we need to target that H1 exactly, which is inside of our content, H1, this one right here. Instead of 0 at the top, in this case should be 1 ring. And I believe that should do it, to give it more space between the image and the other one. By the way, guys, I know that this bug that we have initially, that we are not seeing any content running, just this, and then yes, we are seeing this. We will fix that later. Right, guys, we need to work with the form restriction, this one right here. This is from the original page, and for full screen it looks like this, and for a smaller screen it looks like that. So first of all, HTML structure, let's just paste it. Let's go inside of our project, scroll down, and there you go. The things that I would like to highlight here is inside of our div with the class of input group, because we are using input type of telephone. And the attributes that I would like to highlight is max length, 2, 2, and 4 until 4 digits, and min and max attributes. Why? Because it only allows us to type only 2 digits for the month, 2 digits for the date, and finally 4 digits for the year. Okay, this is our age restriction form. Let me shrink this window, and let's first of all import that partial. And now remember that our main tag is from the footer until the header, or vice versa. So I will say main. I need to get rid of that first, so display none. That should do it, and there you go. Now for the rest of the CSS properties, I do not want to waste time on that. You can watch it later on the GitHub repository. Just going to paste, and there you go. Let me just refresh, expand this window, and of course not responsive yet because we need to go inside of this breakpoint, more than 768 pixels, and apply the following. I would like to show my bottle, this bottle right here, because that's more than 760 pixels, and this is for smaller screens. We can carry on with our JavaScript. So let me close. So we need to apply DOM manipulation. We need the form access. I mean the form with the class, with the ID of class, access, this one right here. Then the whole div of each page, this one right here, and finally the main tag, which contains the main content of our page, because it has initially the class, the property of display now. Okay, so form access, that at the event listener in this case is going to be submit. Then my event parameter, callback function e.prevent default, for preventing the default behavior of our form to refreshing itself. Then I need to get access to each input. How can we do that exactly? Well, thanks to the name attribute, we can get access by doing the following. So month should be equals to form access, which is the wrapper. Then thanks to the name attribute, we can say month, because that's the name attribute of our first input. And then I will get the value. So same thing is going to go for the day. So form access, that day should be that value. And finally for the year, same idea. So year equals form access, that year, that value, because each input has that name attribute. month, date, and year. However, this should return me a number, but so far this is an string type, month, date, and year. How can we turn that into integer? Well, by just adding a plus sign in front of this expression. You can use parse int if you want, but that will do it anyway. The plus, I think this is shorter by using the plus sign. Okay, then I would like to apply like a form validation, some basic form validation. I mean, if the month doesn't exist, or if my day doesn't exist, or if my year is empty, my input year is empty, well, just alert something, alert, and some kind of message to the page, because we need to know if you're more than 21 years old. So, and after that we just return in order to escape from that listener of submit. We stop the functionality. Next, we need to calculate our age. So const age should be equal to a function that I will create that I'm going to call calculate age using comma case. Here we're going to set, of course, the year that we have inside of our input, the month, and the day. And therefore I will say the following. Another if statement: if my age is less than 21 years old, I will set an alert with a specific message that says you must be 21 or older to access this page. Otherwise, this otherwise means that I passed that age barrier, so I'm allowed to go to that page. Therefore, I can say main dot style dot display should be equals to block to show the page, of course. And I need to hide this original page, which is a page that style that display should be equal to none. So if we try it, of course this is not going to work because we haven't created calculate year yet, but let's comment this out and say I have, I don't know, 34 in this case. Age is equals to 34. So if I type anything, it doesn't matter anyway, and say except I'm able to see my page. You see? Let's refresh. Let's remove this and I'll comment this because we need to create that function now. Function and basically calculate age. So I'm going to grab it, paste it to have those params, and then we need to get the current date by using the new date constructor. Oh my god, that's the way that we can get the current date. Now next I need to get my birth date, so const birth date should be equals to, again, the new constructor. But here we're going to use one of the 9 ways to create a new date object. How? Well, we're going to pass year, we're going to pass month -1 and the day from our parameter. But why month -1? This is because month in JavaScript is a 0 indexed value, so from 0 until 11, where January is 0 and December is 11. Therefore, if the user says my birth month is in October, for my user that would be the number 10, but for JavaScript 10 would be November. So that's the reason we are subtracting month by 1. Well, next we need to get our age. How? Well, today that get full year minus birth date that get full year. And after that we need to, after that calculation, we need to return the age. But what if we have not reached our birth month yet? I mean, const, let me say, const month div should be equals to today that get month minus birth date that get month method. And I have a mistype over there, I know. And I will say the following. So if I have not reached my birth month yet, that means that I'm not turned yet. So if my month div is less than 0, I will subtract my age by 1 because I have not been turned yet. Because today is August and my birth month is in October. so I'm not turned yet. So following the idea, okay, that's great. But we can go one step further for the day. So inside of this if statement, we will say, or if the difference of the months is 0, which stands for that we are on the current month but not the day itself, I will subtract my age by 1. But also if my today that get date is less than birth date, oh my god, if I can type that get date stands for, okay, what if my birthday is in August, okay, but today is number 3, but my birthday is until 15, so that's the difference is negative, so that means that I have not been turned yet. So this whole conditional here stands for I haven't reached the exactly date for my birthday. So in this case, just subtract the age by 1. Now let's try it. So it's 2, and I don't know, 2 and 10 in this case. If I refresh, of course, 2, 2010. Okay, I'm getting an error maybe. Let's see. Get month. Ah, misspelled. Where are you? Okay, copy, paste. I believe this should do it now. 2 to 10. Of course, alert. It must be older than 21. Now, what if they are, I don't know, empty? You must fill fields. Now, what if I'm more than 21? And there you go. But we encountered that our carousel was running already under the hood. So let's go here and remove this. And now, of course, nothing happens since we never call run page. Where are you? We are never calling that. So therefore, inside of our else statement, this one right here, we need to call it. So we will say set timeout. So after a second and a half, I will call my, where are you? Run page. So remove everything. Okay, run page. So if we try it again. There you go. It's running. However, we still have that first bug that we got earlier, that our initial content is not running. This one right here is not running. How can we solve that? Well, we need to call again everything. I mean, this whole code right here, we need to call it again, just for initial purposes. So when I have access to the page, please run that content. So if we just paste it and try that again, that won't be a problem anymore. Ta-da! And it is just running and running, and no matter how many times, I mean, if I change, it works. If I change that again, it works. If I use the menu, it still works. If I scroll down, it toggle the menu, it still works. And as you can see, it's already responsive, pretty much as the original page. But the original page has this little bug from the menu and the carousel, but we just fixed that. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'm truly sorry that this video is quite long. I tried to make it shorter. Next time I will focus more on the JavaScript than the CSS. I mean, if I have to speak with the CSS, some CSS properties, I will. Otherwise, I just jump into the JavaScript.
By the way, if you find this video helpful, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more.